But when Paro sees that they seem to be wandering aimlessly, he figures God is not with them. They're lost, and they're trying to get away, but they have no plan. So it encourages Paro to regain his confidence and pursue them. And when he hears after a 3-day journey that they're not making their way back, he gathers his people, and on the 7th day after begging them to leave, he's come and ready to force them to come back. And from Hashem's plan, this was the ultimate in teaching Paro about who's boss, and teaching the world, teaching the Jewish people. This was an opportunity for that lesson. It was also an opportunity had Paro just said, all right, they're gone, I'll just leave them alone, people would still be somewhat not so relaxed, knowing that Pharaoh is still a mighty Pharaoh. He let us go, he gave us permission, but who knows what's going to be. Maybe he'll come and attack us. So they would always have that hanging over them, even after they leave and they go to the land of Israel. Be like, who knows, Paro still may come back to get us. But this was really a relief after the splitting of the sea, when Pharaoh and his army are gone, and they really know that they can rest assured that they don't have to worry about Pharaoh ever again. The way guiding them from Egypt is all guided just by Hashem's GPS. There's no, it's Hashem decides exactly what route they're taking, and every part of it is planned. They weren't lost in the desert. They weren't wandering aimlessly. It looked like they were wandering, but it was all every move actually throughout the whole 40 years in the desert was following an exact planned path that Hashem wanted them to travel every step of the way. And as we read in the beginning of this week's Torah portion, you had the pillar of cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night, leading the people, directing traffic.
That was the original GPS.
Yep, the original GPS.
Yeah.
And that those directions were so the people knew where to go, and they knew who was leading them. Hashem was leading them, and they can trust that this is the right way to go. But Paro comes and chases them, and the people now panic. And some people want to go back to Egypt. Some people complaining, why did you take us out to die by the sword? Wouldn't it be better if we just would die in Egypt peacefully? Why take us here to die by the sword? And Hashem tells Moshe, don't worry about it. Moshe tells the people, you'll see the miracles that God's going to be performed before you. You're never going to see the Egyptians again. Hashem will fight for you, and you be silent. And Hashem tells them, tell the people to go and lift your staff over the sea, and I'll have the Egyptians chase you into the sea. And then we read about how it all went, how Hashem splits the sea. But an interesting question that the Rabbi asks about this is, Hashem is splitting the sea. Why does he tell Moshe to lift his staff over the sea? Hashem can split the sea without Moshe lifting his staff. The staff is not helping. It's not pushing the water or pulling the water. What's the point in using the staff? And also, Hashem tells them that they should, Hashem tells Moshe, tell the people they should start moving. They should travel, go towards the sea. Why? Why not just split the sea first? Make the path. And then they'll come and they'll go into the sea. Tell them that they should start moving. They're going. And Moshe's lifting his staff. The interesting explanation is that even though Hashem is the one that's doing all the miracles here, Hashem is making it all happen, Hashem wants us to participate, do something on our part to initiate it. Take a small step. I'm sorry?
Or believe that it will happen.
Believe that it will happen, and make an effort of something, some minimal symbolic effort on your part first, and that becomes the vessel where that flow of that energy and those miraculous events will come and follow. Don't just sit back and wait for Hashem to do it. Go and take a step. Take the first step. And then Hashem will do the rest. Similar ideas is expressed in the Talmud about, that if we open up even a needle's hole, like the hole of a needle, Hashem tells us, open up your hearts just like the hole of a needle, and I'll open up for you like the entrance to a big hall. Do something. Take the first step. We read about the splitting of the sea and the song that came afterwards. But after the whole song of the sea, we have a similar theme happening later where there's no water, and Hashem doesn't just say, you know what, the water is bitter, I'll make it sweet. But Hashem tells Moshe, take a piece of wood and put it into the water, and now the water is sweet. So we have again that idea of that participation. Later we have it towards the end of the Torah portion. We have it with the man. Something very interesting about the man. The man is food from heaven. Right? We read about how the people were hungry. They ran out of food. It was a month after the Exodus. And their bags with the dough and with the bread, the matzah, was all done. There was nothing left to eat. And the people are hungry. And they say, what shall we do? There's no food. And Hashem provides food from heaven, the manna, the man. And although the man falls from heaven, they have to make some efforts and go out and collect the man. And the commentators talk about the man. There's different words that are used about the process of preparing the man. And the man is called bread from heaven, but there's also discussion of cooking or baking the man. And there's a mention of grinding the man. So, our sages teach us that the man was food from heaven, but it really depended on the people and what kind of man they got. Hey, how are you? For those that were completely righteous, the man was a loaf of bread ready to eat. For those that were so. The man came as ready to bake, like a piece of dough ready to put in the oven. But for the wicked, the man came as raw grain that they have to grind and start from to prepare from the beginning. But for everybody, it was, didn't involve planting. You didn't have to harvest it. All you do is go outside and you gather some, and you have your food. So on the one hand, the man is ready-made, prepared by Hashem. It's miraculous food. It's not natural food. So being miraculous food, why not put it directly in the pantry, ready to eat for everybody? Why make them go outside and collect it? Even for the tzaddikim, they still had to go to their doorstep to gather some. Why not do the full job? It's not natural anyway. Why not do the full thing? Why require them, especially your average person, to go out and gather it, to go out to the field and gather the man and then prepare it? Why not have it all completely ready? So the Rebbe explains about this, that the man was really, it was not just a lesson in faith, as it was a lesson in faith, that Hashem will provide for you, and Hashem could provide for you, and that's why they had the prohibition against saving man for the next day, like rely on Hashem. He took care of you today, I'll take care of you tomorrow. You don't have to put it away for tomorrow. But the man was also a preparation for going into the land of Israel. When they would later enter the land of Israel, they would have to go to work and plant and harvest. And when working, ever since the month stopped, we might say, God could do miracles, but He's not doing them anymore. And now I have to work, and I have to earn it naturally. The supernatural things that were going on in the desert, that's history. That was once upon a time. That has no relevance to my life today. That was then. Now I have to do all the work, and it's dependent on me completely, whether I'm going to have bread to eat or not. So the message that Hashem wanted to give us is not only that Hashem could provide food for you supernaturally, but that Hashem also wants us to participate and do something to bring that man home. Whether it's just going out and picking it up, or going out far and gathering it and having to bake it or cook it. That, yes, it's supernatural. God is giving it to you, and God is looking out for you, and you can trust Hashem, and still Hashem is telling you, I want you to do something. And we'll remember that later, once the months stop and we enter the land of Israel, we have to work, and we don't get the man coming from heaven. We remember that even now, and even after the man is stopped, Hashem is still the one that's providing the food. The man is still falling. Now it's just that Hashem requires and wants us to do a little more efforts, to make the basket, to be able to gather the man. So then in the desert it was, just go out and gather it in your basket, but you know that it comes from Hashem and you just do your part. Now too, after the manna stopped falling, Hashem is the one that's providing the bread. Hashem is the one that's providing the food, the sustenance, and everything that we need. But Hashem also wants us to provide the baskets, to go out and gather, And now we have to put in more effort and work in a natural way and provide a natural path for these blessings to flow, but remembering that these blessings are still God's blessings that are flowing, and it's not our work that actually makes it happen, but our work is only because that's the way Hashem wants it to be, that we should do our part, and that's how the blessings flow. Also, at the end of the portion, we have the mitzvah of Shabbos. Right after the man, we have, together with the man, really, we have the mitzvah of Shabbos. And the way that Shabbos is introduced, the first time it's mentioned is about the mitzvah for the Jewish people to keep Shabbos is here. Of course, we have the original time in the 6 days of creation where it tells us that Hashem rested, but no commandment for people to rest. And our Torah portion is the first time that Shabbos is introduced. And how is it introduced? It's introduced with man. Hashem surprises them on Friday when they come home and everybody realizes we have double what we usually bring home. And they go out to find out what's going on, and they hear about, hey, you know what? You know why you have double? Because tomorrow is Shabbos. Tomorrow you can't go out and gather them on. So it's for today and for tomorrow. And this idea of Shabbos is really appropriate that it's taught through the man, because the whole idea of Shabbos is that every Shabbos we stop working. And by not working, we're recognizing that the blessings come from Hashem, because if my income and my sustenance is completely about my work, then it doesn't make sense to take the day off. If I work another day, I'll have more money. I'll work another day, I'll be better off. The idea of keeping Shabbos is saying one day I'm not going to work, is declaring that my work, yes, I work 6 days because Hashem wants me to work 6 days. But it's not just about my working. It's Hashem's blessing that I get, and my working is just to get that blessing. But if there were no blessing, there would be nothing to get. I can work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but if there's no blessing flowing, there's nothing to take. So that working for 6 days is doing our part, and then not working on Shabbos is recognizing that those 6 days that I work is not that I am accomplishing everything and I have what to eat because I worked. I work because I'm supposed to work. I have the bread because Hashem is giving me the bread through my work. And that's a tremendous lesson that they're getting every day for 40 years in recognizing, yes, we do our part, and Hashem is the one that fills it in. And this is a preparation for going into the land of Israel, where they'll not see this miracle happening in front of their eyes, but remember that this is how it works. At the end of the Parsha, the last part of the Parsha, after Shabbos and after the man, we have the story of Amalek. Amalek comes and attacks Bnei Yisrael, and the Torah tells us very interestingly that when Moshe would lift his hands, then Israel would succeed and overcome Amalek. But if he would put his hands down, then Amalek would get stronger. And this story, these events really fit with the theme of the Parsha. You have the the miracles that happen, when Moshe's hands are up, miracles are happening. They're winning. He puts his hands down and they're losing. Clearly, it's a supernatural. Their winning has got to do with Moshe's hands being up. Yet they have to make an effort and they go out and fight. It's not a battle that's won. With the Egyptians, the work was all done for them. They just had to, Moshe lifting the staff, they had to start marching, and it's done. That was their contribution. Here, they're actually taking up a battle with Amalek. And a similar message of, yes, you're going to go into the land of Israel, and it won't all be splitting of the sea, and it's not going to be completely supernatural where you have to do absolutely nothing. But on the other hand, remembering that your success is because Moshe's hands are lifted, as the Mishnah says, that it wasn't about Moshe's hands being up or down, but Moshe's hands being up means Moshe was reminding them that they should turn their eyes up, not focus on the battle in front of them, but think about that which is beyond their immediate surrounding. Think about Hashem. Turn their hearts to their Father in heaven, and that would lead to victory. And if they were just thinking about winning the war and just thinking about what do I have to do in this fight, and not thinking about Hashem, then that's Moshe's hands being down. That's failing. So our success in the battle, in the natural battle, depends on our relationship with Hashem and our trust in Hashem and the blessing that flows from Hashem into that natural battle that we're having. So I want to go back to the song of the sea. That was what was the headline of the email, right? Yeah, the subject line was the Song of the Sea. So I'll get back to the Song of the Sea. But right before they start singing, it says that they saw what Hashem did, and they saw the great hand or the great arm that Hashem did with the Egyptians at the end of chapter 14. And the people feared God and they believed in Hashem and in his servant Moshe. So that faith is really emphasized so many times in this week's Torah portion. Definitely a theme here. Before the splitting of the sea, it's have faith that Hashem will do it. Afterwards, emphasizing that they believed in Hashem and in the servant Moshe. And then when they're thirsty, their faith is shaken a little bit. What's going on? Why is Hashem not giving us water? They're hungry. And each time it's a lesson in trusting Hashem. And that's really continuing from, knowing that Hashem can do miracles. They've learned over the process, but really developing that trust that Hashem will take care of you. And it's something which we have reoccurring again and again in this Torah portion. Every story, that's the lesson, that's the message. Is you might have to do something about it. You have to, put in some effort. Hashem is with you. Hashem is making it happen. And when their faith is so strong, what results is that they start singing. Singing to Hashem. Singing you do when you have no worries, right? When you're worried, you don't feel like singing. But when you have, you're sure everything's okay, naturally you can have spontaneous singing result. Singing, and in this case, after what they witnessed, the splitting of the sea, and that Egypt is no longer a threat at all. their faith was strengthened so strong that they knew whatever is going to happen, we're in good hands. Hashem is going to take care of us. We trust Moshe as our leader. And Moshe starts singing, and a beautiful song. And our sages say about the beginning, it says, then Moshe will sing, that it's a hint to Moshe singing again. Then Moshe will sing, the first words, Az Yashir Moshe, then Moshe will sing. You can translate it as then he sang, but also that then he will sing at some future time. And our sages say that this is a hint to Moshe singing at the time of Mashiach, the resurrection of the dead, the really great song when not just Pharaoh is gone, and not just Egypt, the Egyptian threat is gone, but when all exiles are over, and all of our enemies are not a threat anymore. The permanent and final song that Moshe will sing when the exile is really fully over, and that's also hinted to at the end, where the end of the song is that, and Hashem should keep this going until the people are standing strong in the Holy Land, and the temple is permanently fixed, and that Hashem Yimloch L'Olam Vad, may Hashem rule forever. That is the ending. Those words at the end of the song it's like, this is a great start, but we are praying and hoping for this to continue until we have the final redemption with Mashiach. In the Torah, the song is not written like a regular paragraph in the Torah, but it's written out the way that you have it in this Chumash. That's the way it actually appears in the Torah. Special style, special for the song. The different opinions of exactly how they sang it. Moshe leading the song. Did they all sing it together? Moshe say one sentence and everybody repeat. Different styles of how they sang it. And our sages also say about King Chizkiyahu that he had a miracle happen to him and to the people of Judea when Sanherib was laying siege on Yerushalayim, and Chizkiyahu did not have any. They were complete desperation. They had no way to fight, and Chizkiyahu calmly went to sleep, trusting that Hashem will take care of dealing with the Assyrians. He completely trusted the words of the prophet. It's going to be okay. He calmly went to sleep, and that night, an angel wiped out the Assyrian army, and the Talmud says that God was going to make Chizkiyahu Mashiach, but the angels said, he's not fitting. He didn't sing to you after such a great miracle. He didn't sing. No singing. Singing is our ultimate way of expressing our thanks, our appreciation. Singing to Hashem. The Rebbe spoke about this, and he said that this is a lesson for us, and how we have to, when a miracle happens in our life, Hashem does something for us, not to just say, oh, I'm so thankful and then move on, but to make a big deal, to sing about it, right? I mean, at this point, after the sea was split, they could have just said, oh, thank you, God, for splitting the sea. What's next? But recognizing and celebrating the miracle, giving that Thanksgiving, making a big party, that's, of course we have Passover every year after these events. But right when it happened, what's their reaction? Let's sing to Hashem. And that's something which so the Rabbi encouraged that anybody who has a miracle, even if it's a personal miracle, something happened, in our lives, we should tell people about it, celebrate the miracle. Singing is kind of getting the word out about what happened, and it's expresses our appreciation for the miracle, and it also strengthens the faith and trust of those who hear about it. It extends the effect of the miracle to not just be something which maybe I appreciate and strengthen my relationship with Hashem, that this happened, but something to share with everyone, and to be able to sing to Hashem, celebrate the miracles together with those around us, to publicize the miracles. In that spirit, my sisters had a school project where they had to write about family history, family history research project, and so it can be just a school project, but my mother reading this, this message from the Rebbe about publicizing the miracles that happen, even if it's personal miracles. So she really went with them into that project to go research the family history and all the miracles along the way that happened to individuals in their family. So to make those those stories to be publicized, everyone should know about it. It's not just a personal story, but if it's a miracle, it should be shared with everyone. So, anybody got any questions about the Parsha? I think there's so much in this Parsha, but that was what I had prepared.
I do. So God hardens Pharaoh's heart. So free will, can you explain that? I mean,
It's a classic question.
Yeah.
Be interested in hear what your take is on that.
Yeah.
There's many.
Maybe you can share some of the explanations that you read or heard.
Well, Rabbi last week said that it was because Pharaoh knew that the Jews were supposed to be enslaved, but he did it too well. He took advantage of the situation beyond what was deemed reasonable, and therefore payback.
So that addresses the question of why have any plague to begin with. Why not just say, hey Pharaoh, thank you very much. You did your assignment. Here's your reward for enslaving them. That's how it should have ended, right? Thank you very much. Here's your paycheck for doing, fantastic job. So that would address that question. But and I think the Rambam gives that answer. But then the follow-up question is like you said. But then you can punish him. But then when he starts to soften up, and he's ready to let them go, why make his heart to be heavy or more stubborn than he was?
There's also another commentary, and that is on the 10th plague. It only affected the firstborn, and the rest of Egypt it didn't really affect. So in order for Hashem to say, wait a minute, I'm God and I affect everybody, he brought the rest of them, which was the chariot drivers and everything else, out there to show the world that everybody was affected, not only during the 10th plague.
It was also the firstborn wherever they were.
Yeah.
There was many firstborns because of illicit relationships. And it wasn't just the firstborns, because they tried to understand what was going on, and when they put some of their kids in Jewish homes, they really screwed up, because then the secondborn would die and the firstborn would die. But it's also strengthening his heart. So if you didn't get the message in 5 plagues and did teshuvah to change his ways, one of the commentaries is that God strengthened his heart and allowed him to, unfortunately be a slave to his own ways. He didn't change. That's many forms of addiction. His power was his addiction. And he just kept lying to himself.
Yeah, I think you combined a few answers there.
Thank you.
The first one I think you were saying was that at first Pharaoh was being really bad on his own.
Right.
And like you were saying earlier, even though it was part of God's plan that they would be in Egypt, God didn't decree specifically that any individual has to be mean or any individual has to do, that. They could leave that for somebody else. So one who chooses it is still really choosing it. But then Pharaoh goes on to make a series of bad choices to the point of no return, where as a punishment for his bad behavior was that he would not have the opportunity anymore to change his mind and to turn around. So the hardening of his heart as part of the punishment for himself hardening his own heart and making himself stubborn. In the beginning of the first plague, it's Paro himself starts by saying, I'm not going to let myself be impressed by these signs and miracles. And then, that's followed by Hashem saying, you know what, I'm taking the choice away from you. But I heard actually another explanation, which is like what you continue to say, which is really a nice interpretation, is that Paro really wanted to, he wanted to be in charge and not allow them to leave. And usually, when somebody sees a miracle, they lose their free choice. They're so impressed by the miracle that they can't resist. And like, I surrender, you know what? I give up. That's a normal reaction. That you lose your free choice as a result of the miracle. It reminds me of the Vart, the thought that was, I don't remember who said it. The idea was that God, why do you have any complaints against the Jewish people? He said, if you put all of the temptations in a book and you put godliness out in the open, then you have something to be disappointed and to why aren't we living up, behaving appropriately and doing what we should be doing. But you put all the godliness into the books, and all around us you put the temptations. So, what do you expect, right? So if God would put all of the, put the godliness everywhere and perform miracles all the time, we would have, how can we do anything against Hashem when, it's obvious that this is, that Hashem is the one that runs the show.
But then it would take away the free choice, just as you said. If we saw the miracles constantly, we would say, well, then there you go.
Exactly. So that's what the problem was here. Paro, he was about to lose his free choice as a result of the plagues. And Hashem strengthened his heart so that he could still have free choice and not be overcome by the plagues. So in other words, Hashem didn't take away his free choice by hardening his heart. Hashem was giving him free choice by hardening his heart. So, you know what? I'll allow you to still make that choice and not be overcome and overwhelmed by all these miracles that I perform. So, did Paro have free choice all the way through, all the way till the end? According to some interpretations, he retained his free choice. According to other interpretations, he lost it. And losing it was, he was already past the point of still having choices and getting punished. It was part of his consequence of his previous actions. But
So the question comes is that after seeing the 10 plagues, seeing what the hand of God can do, yet after seeing that, go into the Red Sea and chase the Hebrews, when you know that you have a pillar of water here and a pillar of water there, that takes an insane mind to do that. Why would he do that?
Depends upon if he thought that pillar of water was going to collapse or it was going to stay.
No, but after
that
you've
way.
seen 10 miracles or plagues happen, but you still almost like don't believe and go into the water. Why would he still go into the water after that? That's my question.
The mind plays tricks on you. It happened over several months, but when it's in the front of your mind, something happens. When it fades back and you have time to rationalize it and talk it away, he did that over and over again. When you think you're a God yourself, you don't want to believe there's something more powerful than you.
And I think that like we said, Hashem also kind of led him to believe that he still had some authority.
Yeah, good point.
With each plague, Pharaoh's like, Hashem didn't do anything. Worse, he probably can't. Moshe's still coming to me to get permission. He probably needs my permission. If he didn't need it, he wouldn't come ask for it. So the impression that Paro has is, after each plague, and to some extent this continues even after the 10th plague, but I guess Paro's impression, after the plague of darkness is, up until that point, is I can handle all these inconveniences. Yes, God is able to do some things to make my life inconvenient, but you know what? I can wait it out. And obviously, God can't do it without my permission, and I'm not giving it. So they're staying here. The 10th plague really was a shock to Paro, because suddenly people are dying. If God could have killed the firstborn, he could have killed me. And, so that was like, hey, I'm not really in charge. God can kill whoever he wants to kill. So he's like, all right, if I don't let them out, we'll all be dead. So I leave. But like you said, a couple of days later, Paro's thinking about it and says, at the end of the day, God needed my permission. Maybe he can kill the firstborns, but he can't kill me, because if he could kill me, he would have done that, and then they would be free. He didn't do that. He probably can't do it, because I'm really in charge, and besides, they only said they were going for 3 days. Time's up. I let them go for what they asked for. Now I'm the one that's right for taking them back. So I never gave permission for them to leave permanently. My permission was just for a couple days. So that's what God wanted. Give him a couple days. I gave him a couple days. Now I'm in charge again, and I have the right to enslave them again. So if I was trying to think about what was going through Paro's head, I'd say, God obviously needs my permission. He sends Moshe to ask for it, and only because I authorized them going, that's why they can go. And I only authorized 3 days, a 3-day journey. It should have been a 3-day journey, celebrate, 3 days back, and it's over. Now it's 7 days later, they haven't returned, and they seem like they're lost. So it seems like God just abandoned them. Instead of taking them in a nice path towards, some destination, they're going in circles, and they're going this way, and then they're going that way, and now they're, they're standing in a canyon by the sea. They don't know what they're doing, and I'm in charge. And I have the right, after 3 days, for sure, I have the right to go and get them.
But what he didn't realize is that he was told that they weren't going for 3 days. So then he would come later on to the end of the sea to go and be killed in the sea. That he didn't realize, probably.
Yeah, definitely didn't pick up on that.
because if Moses would have said, okay, I'm going, not coming back, he would have not thought about chasing after them.
Yeah, and that is really explains why Moshe Rabbeinu, to begin with, told them, we want to go on a 3-day journey. He could have just told them, we want to leave and we don't want to come back. Had that been the presentation, he would have never, or maybe he would not have chased them afterwards, like, you know what, it's over. But he still thought that it wasn't over yet. I gave permission for 3 days. Up until that point, it was all with his permission. He said, you can take your children, you can take your animals, and you can go. Just go out now. So everything is according to Paro's plan. He's in charge. Now 7 days are up, and he's like, not only are they gone, we don't have our slave workforce, where they took our stuff too. They borrowed our gold and silver, and they took our animals, and now they're not coming back. So that was another tease to convince them to make this ridiculous decision after the 10 plagues, to still go and think that they can do what they want and get them back. It's really a crazy thing to do, but I guess you want to get your slaves back, your gold and silver, and you think you're in charge and it's all your permission. So, but they get the ultimate lesson at the sea, where they realize that God definitely can do anything, And he doesn't need Pharaoh's permission. It was about educating Pharaoh, not about Pharaoh being in charge, but about teaching Pharaoh, teaching Egypt, and through them teaching the Jewish people and teaching the world about, that even though the world seems like there's rules of nature and that we can make decisions and we have power to do what we want, at the same time to remember that the fact that God lets us make choices, God lets us make choices, is not because he can't stop us or because he can't do what he wants. He gives us the freedom to choose, and he wants us to make good choices. But that's only a gift that God has given us, that freedom to make those choices. But it's not because we are really in charge. And that's a message that we need to remember every day. It's interesting that from this Torah portion, there's some things that we're supposed to remember every day. Every day we're supposed to remember the Exodus from Egypt. Every day we're supposed to remember what Amalek did to us, right? The story of Amalek. Every day we're supposed to remember Shabbos. These are things that we're not supposed to just think about once a week or once in a while, once a year, but every day. And the lessons of all these things that we're reading about or we're supposed to remember every day is that God runs the show. It's a lesson of Aman, of the Exodus from Egypt, of Shabbos, of Amalek. It's that, yes, sometimes we have to work and do something, and we have to participate and do our part, but still recognizing that God runs the show and to trust, to have that faith. You're very welcome.
Thank you, Rabbi.
It's like the minhag I grew up with. If you have to ask Hashem for help, you missed it. In other words,
Okay. That you should,
You don't
if
need
you have
to
the
pray.
faith and the trust,
Right.
beforehand, you shouldn't have to get
you
to the
missed the
point where
path
you.
that he's laid out for you.
Well, don't need to pray.
This is the minhag I was taught.
What that reminds me of is the matzah, because if there's the matzah, matzah is called the food of faith and the food of healing. And if you have the food of faith first, then that's the better way. You don't need to get sick to begin with. If you have the healing first the healing and then the faith, then you needed to get sick and then get healed and then you get the faith. You got the faith a little too late. But if you have the faith first, then you can avoid needing to have.
Well, that's also why